For $89, the NiceHCK Octave gives you a top-tier DAC chip, balanced power, and a full parametric equalizer to tune your sound. Almost full. Hey there folks, my name is Norb, and I want to talk a bit about my experience with the NiceHCK Octave. Quick disclosure, the company sent me this unit for an honest review. They didn't pay me, they had zero input into what I'm about to tell you. I do get to keep the unit, so there's that. But product links are in the description, as always, and I don't think I even have an affiliate account. It's like an AliExpress link, whatever. It's down there, I don't make extra money from that. Here's what you need to know. This dongle sounds clean and detailed, and it has good power, but there are some quirks. The Octave feels premium. Aluminum body with tempered glass panels and weighs just 25 grams, although it feels solid. You get two headphone jacks, a 3.5mm output delivering 150 milliwatts at 32 ohms, and a 4.4mm balance connection providing 550 milliwatts at 32 ohms. For most of my testing, the 3.5mm jack was just fine, but if you want extra power, you're gonna get it. There are three physical buttons on one side for volume and playback, plus a gain switch on the other side for low and high settings. These feel solid with great feedback and clickability, but I wish the gain switch was labeled. The included USB-C cable is color matched, and mine's purple, but there's also gray. It's braided with metal connectors on it. There's no screen, just a small LED that changes color based on audio quality. Some people won't care about this, but I missed having that information like volume and audio quality at a glance. Still, overall, it feels really good in the hand. Now, the app is where the Octave stands apart because it has a parametric EQ through an app, but the app is only for Android users. So iPhone users can skip this whole section, just use the timeline below. The hardware works perfectly fine there, but you need Android to access the EQ or any of the advanced settings. There are a couple of notable dongles in this space that also have apps, which I need to call out. The first is the Creanier Protocol Max, since it's the same price and it was released around the same time. The EQ on that one works differently than this one. It requires an online component that this one doesn't, but that's a topic for another video. Another would be the Q-X5K, which is legendary for a reason. It is more expensive, but not terribly so. If you're looking for something that can give you wireless functionality, that's where I'd steer you to, since the Octave required a wired connection. Anyway, most dongles at this price just amplify and decode audio. They don't really let you touch the sound. The Octave actually gives you that control. The app itself has a clean interface, although if you're an English speaker, note that some of the labels are in Chinese, but the design makes sense and navigation isn't confusing even with this. Now, the parametric EQ is divided into two parts: the gain and the Q value, or the quality factor. The Q value represents how focused your adjustment is. The higher the number, the more precise the control. The lower the number, the wider the frequency range you're affecting. This gives you way more control than a standard EQ, which normally only lets you adjust the gain, or how loud specific bands get. The Octave lets you go 12 decibels up or down, which, by the way, is great. That's a really good range. Huge props to the NiceHCK team for documentation about this in the app, though. I love good documentation. Also, you can store unlimited custom equalizer settings. Now, notice that there is a massive gap between 200 Hz and 4500 Hz. That is the entire range where most of the human voice lives. That's where violins and guitars sit. That's the body of almost every instrument, and you have zero control over it. So you can control the bass and the treble, and it delivers a solid bass, by the way, but you can't touch the mids. Here's why that's a problem. If you have that honk at 1 kHz that needs to be toned down, or if you want to add more presence by bumping the 1 to 3 kHz region, or if you want to reduce the ear gain region some because it is too harsh for you, good luck, you can't. You can work around it by adjusting everything else relative to that locked in mid-range, but it is frustrating. It's the one thing about the Octave which I actively disliked. Outside of the EQ, you'll also see the digital filter setting. There's no documentation here, and I wish there was, so here's a quick breakdown. This setting controls how the digital to analog conversion happens. It alters the sound signature by managing high frequency roll-off, impulse response, and ringing. Fast filters provide a precise and analytical sound. Slow filters offer a warmer, a more natural sound that is less detailed. So here on the screen are your options, and I'll keep this on the screen while I give my recommendation, which is to use fast filters for maximum detail and high energy music. Use the slow filters for warmer, less fatiguing, or a more musical sound, especially if your headphones or IEMs are already very analytical and detailed. Personally, I either prefer the non-OS or slow PC settings because I like that warmer, more natural character when I'm listening for fun. Moving on to the sound itself, the Octave has a neutral to analytical sound. It doesn't add warmth or color. It's trying to let your headphones or IEMs sound exactly how they were tuned. It's not a thick, round, smooth presentation like you get from some other dongles. This is cleaner, more structured, and more precise. The direct comparison that I would have is something like an i5 versus this. i5 definitely gives it more bass and warmth in the body versus this, which is more of that straight, analytical, completely neutral, get out of the way type of sound. What you're hearing is the ESS ES9039Q2M DAC chip at work. And I did that on the first take. That's fantastic. Here's what makes the Octave special though. It uses that power for control, not loudness. The 4.4mm output can deliver 550 milliwatts at 32 ohms, and that is good power for a dongle. But the way it's voiced, you're not getting punchy aggression. You're getting stability, better damping, cleaner transients. If a drum hits, you hear exactly where it hits and how long it rings. You don't get smearing. This also means the Octave pairs well with a lot of different IEMs and headphones. Warm devices sound properly weighted. Technical neutral IEMs and headphones sound open and airy, just like they're supposed to. Even bright devices feel more controlled without losing their character. And again, you can use a digital filter to tune this character a bit. Now, this is all through the 4.4. The 3.5mm output is a slightly different story. It only outputs 150 milliwatts, which is fine for sensitive IEMs, but notably less powerful than the balanced output. If you want the full experience, use the 4.4mm jack, but don't blow your ears out. Hashtag protect your hearing. The Octave can decode PCM audio up to 768 kHz at 32 bits resolution. If you're into local high-res files, the Octave handles those flawlessly. Same with streaming services. The gain switch lets you switch between low and high gain. Low gain is best for sensitive IEMs, and high gain is perfect for demanding devices that need more voltage to hit loud levels. A good pair of headphones, for example. One of the things to keep in mind and to note is, and this is regarding the chips, by the way, oftentimes when you try to put the volume below a certain level, there are going to be errors in the sound. You're going to hear distortion in some cases. It'll sound like crackling once it gets below a certain point. I didn't experience that at all with this thing. And that is impressive because higher quality things have disappointed me in that regard. And this did not. The frequency response is listed as 20 Hz to 40 kHz, which is great. No complaints there. All in all, this is a pretty capable DAC most of the time. There are a couple of issues worth noting. Updating the firmware on the Octave, it's something that I could not finish myself. The instructions, some of them just don't make sense. The files that they give you to download don't match necessarily what you see in the presentation, and the app itself is in Chinese, which I can't read. So I have not been able to do any sort of firmware updates. If any changes have been made that are substantial enough to the experience, I cannot cover them. So keep that in mind. That aside, the Octave's neutral tuning means that it works well overall, but not without some snags. And yes, I am wearing different clothes. This is a different day, and that's because after recording the first part of the video, I learned a few things that impact my recommendation. First off, when I was using it with headphones, the power output with the 3.5mm jack was hit or miss. Stuff like the Acoot TH1 sounded great, zero problems. Now this one has low impedance and sensitivity, so it works fine for things with lower power, but other headphones that require more power, like the Hi-Fi Man Ananda, which I have right behind me here, that sounded a bit weak. I needed to push the volume all the way up and the Octave all the way up in order to get them to sound good, even with the Octave on high gain. With a 4.4mm jack, I ran into far fewer problems. I certainly wanted more power in some cases, but for what it is, with the portability, this is very good. But it does warm up some, and I'll talk about why that matters in a bit. Now with IEMs, the story gets a little nuanced, shall we say. I tested this with a number of IEMs, the Kiwi Ears Bell I have right here, the Hydis MK10 Arc Sonic, the Meze Alba right over here. The Duna DaVinci was probably my favorite pairing. Now the DaVinci is one of my favorite IEMs, period. It's got a 4 balanced armature, 2 dynamic driver configuration. It has a warm, relaxing sound. It's comfortable. It's precisely what I want when I want to listen for fun and relaxation. So the warmth of the DaVinci paired really well with the detail and clarity of the Octave. Now it's easy for the DaVinci to be paired with something that moves it from warm to muddy, and this did not get even close to that. If you have a DaVinci and you're looking for a good pairing, this might be precisely what you're looking for. The Kiwi Ears Astral and the Orchestra 2, however, those were another matter. Of note, the Astral has a 6 balanced armature, 1 dynamic driver configuration, and the Orchestra 2 has a 10 balanced armature configuration. Both of them, when I was using them with the 3.5mm jack, sometimes had a static and popping noise to them. I thought it might have been maybe the USB-C connection or the source or the cables on the IEMs, but it wasn't. I switched them all, I tested them all, and the problem was the octave. Now, I switched to the 4.4mm jack and the problems went away entirely. No issues. In fact, side note, I loved the pairing of the Astral with the octave. The octave delivers enough power that the Astral's dynamic drivers really give a solid physical rumble at the bass. It is really very good. Here's the thing though, this issue did not happen every time. Sometimes a 3.5mm jack worked just fine with the same IEMs. I think it might have been, and this is speculation, but I think it might have been a heat related issue. As I said, the octave runs warm, and this is the kind of stuff that tends to happen when circuits overheat, but it might also be an issue with certain audio formats. I can't say for sure. If I had to put money on it, and again, speculation, I'd say it might be a heat issue since all the static issues happen after using the octave for a while. Now, the octave doesn't feel bad to the hand, but that doesn't stop it from being maybe too hot inside. In fact, I had something similar happen with the iFi Go Link. When it was playing for too long, it would have issues. It would start getting static and popping. So this goes to my conclusion with the octave. As good as it is in a lot of ways, the sound is good, the features are nice, the build is magnificent, the octave feels a bit incomplete. If I had bought this and I had some of these issues, I would not have been mad, but I would have been a little disappointed. And I'd been wondering if maybe I should have gone with something else, especially since there's good competition at the $89 mark. Still, if you've already bought this and it's working for you, I'd say go ahead and enjoy the hell out of it. It is a good DAC. And if you're considering, really, the only thing you need to watch out for is how you'll be using it and what to expect out of it. If you're on Android, if you want that neutral sound that you can tune with an app, and if you're mostly using the balanced jack, then you should be good to go. This will be great. Now, if you don't use Android and you want something that leans warm, or if you really need to tune that mid-range, then you probably want to look somewhere else. Overall, I liked the octave, but I think it has some flaws that need to be worked out. Still, I think NiceHCK is headed in the right direction with this. If you found this useful, be sure to hit that like button. And if you're looking for something to pair with the octave, check out this review over here of the MIDS Alba, or click over here to learn more about the Kiwi Ears Astral. With that, take care.